to Coffee and Cream, a podcast where we are changing the narrative one cup of coffee at a time. My name's Jake, and I'm here with Matt.
What is going on, my brother?
We're in the studio.
Yeah, what?
Oh, man. We're here.
We sound better already.
Oh, already. Like, it's just magic.
You guys look better, too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you haven't guessed, we have a guest.
If you haven't, okay, that works. If you haven't guessed, we have a guest with us today.
Yeah.
We'll get to him later. We got some other important stuff to take care of first.
You're important, though, bro.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So we are talking. Before we start about our topic today, dive into our guest, which we're super excited about to be here. We got to go through a couple housekeeping things. So got to go through our coffee for today. What are we drinking, Matt?
I was drinking that Switch, bro. That delicious Switch coffee. You got to check them out, man. It's still good.
Yep.
Which blend did it give us this time? I think we gave it the...
It doesn't say on the bag.
You know what? I think this is the Colombian. I think it's the Colombian.
Yes.
Yes, it is a Colombian. I remember.
Yeah. So guys, Switch Coffee, they are awesome. I want to read a little section from their website. We give them a big plug today. So switchcoffee.co. So they are a local-based roaster here in St. Louis. These guys are awesome. I want to read a section from their website real quick from their story. Go check them out. So we believe coffee is so much more than a beverage with a boost of energy. It is a product that in many ways mirrors the beauty of our human diversity. We see ourselves as a part of the third wave coffee movement that focuses on appreciating the subtleties of flavor, variety, and growing region while celebrating the uniqueness of each country, people, and farm. Coffee gives us this platform to enjoy our differences both in being and in relationship. That's from switchcoffee.co's story page on their website. Yeah. These guys make amazing coffee. Yeah. They're creating and fostering and empowering amazing conversations around St. Louis. If you go to switchcoffee.co and use our promo code Coffee and Cream, you will get 10%, 10 whole percentage points off your next order. These guys are great. Coffee is amazing. Get at them. We also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, JM Films. If your business or organization needs video marketing that gets results, and I mean gets results, go to JM Films at jmfilms.com.
Bro, you're on one today.
I am. I haven't had coffee, and it's starting to kick in a little bit.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about our other...
yeah, we can say it. It's official.
Yeah, okay.
It's official.
Crossway's back.
What?
Yeah, they are back for another round. They came back.
Yeah, they came back.
They came back for more. We'll see if they keep coming back for more.
Hey, I'm all about it, man. Yeah, they're sending some great resources. Should be getting it in the next couple of days. So we'll be sharing that.
Absolutely.
I'm excited for these. They are even going to help us get a couple of interviews with those authors.
Oh yeah, we got some great interviews coming up in the next month. So they're sponsoring us for the month of September. We'll throw up their new resources on our resource tab on our website, coffeeandcreampodcast.com/resources. Go and check those out. We'll be posting about those throughout the couple weeks as we're reading them. Yeah. We're so thankful for Crossway and their sponsorship and all this. So check them out at crossway.org.
Boom.
Okay.
Boom.
Matt?
Yeah, man.
Lead us in our verse today, man.
Yeah, we're coming out of Daniel chapter 1 today, looking at actually verses 17 through 21. And it says this: As for these 4 youths, talking about Daniel and his friends, God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. At the end of the time, when the king had commanded that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king spoke to them, and among all of them, none were found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they stood before the king, and in every manner of wisdom and understanding about which the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters that were in his kingdom. And Daniel was there until the first year of King Cyrus. Yeah, and I think this is so prevalent because I remember growing up, my dad taught on a series in the book of Daniel, and he talked about how these guys were given the education. God gave them the education. These are the people of Israel who have been taken into exile because of their disobedience, but God still had his remnant even among them. And in a foreign country, God allowed them to have a great education. But not just to have an education, just to be smart or whatnot, but to be able to speak wisdom and understanding into the king's life.
Yeah.
And so we know in our day and age, education is very, very important.
Yep.
College education is very important. If you decide to go to college education is important. Trade school education is important. But we want to understand that like God has given us those opportunities as young people, as people coming in or coming out of college, to grow in wisdom and understanding, not just for our benefit, but for the benefit of the world. And so as we here like to talk about racial issues, we have to talk about racial issues on the college realm, in the college realm, on the college campuses. And we need to discuss those things well. So as we're being educated, we're also holding it up to God and saying, God, how do we use this education? How do we deal with these things on campus in order to honor you, but also address and talk to people on the playing field? So that's why we called in our boy Domenic Mendoza.
Hey,
to chop it up with us, man.
What's up?
What up?
How you feeling, bro?
I am feeling the caffeine.
Yeah, that's good. So some people may not know Domenic, but if you watched our video project we did, what was like a year ago? A little bit over a year ago?
No, it's actually a couple months ago.
It was a couple months ago?
Came out on
Really?
MLK Day.
Yeah, okay. It feels like a year ago. I'm feeling real old.
We'll link to it in the bio.
Yeah. But Domenic was on our video project that we did. It feels so long ago, bro.
Yeah.
It does.
So much has happened. So much has changed.
So much. But yeah, he was on our video project. And the reason why we had him on there is he has a great testimony about racial issues. And the reason why we have him on today is not only to share his testimony, but because Domenic, well, you know what? I'm not going to spoil it. I want you to talk about you.
Ooh.
I want you to tell people who you are. I'm getting ahead of the game.
Yeah.
I got to slow down a little bit.
We just want you to talk about you right now.
That's a
right
dangerous
now.
thing. I got a mic in front of me. I
Yeah.
got coffee in my system. Like, I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Well, Domenic, first of all, just kind of let people know who you are. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Domenic Mendoza, and I am on staff with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, and I am at Webster University.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been there since 2010.
Okay.
And I was a student for my undergrad, and then right out of college, I started working for InterVarsity.
That's dope, bro.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit what InterVarsity is, and then what do you do for InterVarsity?
Yeah, it's great. So InterVarsity Christian Fellowship is a campus ministry out here in America, or actually all over the world. But so I am hired as a campus staff minister, and so my role really looks like I'm on the campus. I got Bible studies that I launch. I train students to be leaders on the campus, and I train them on how to like not just like say the gospel to their friends or engage in spiritual conversations, but what does it look like to follow Jesus with your whole life? So stuff like that, and I don't know, doing some cool things with crew this year. We just want to see the campus be fully reached with the power of the gospel. So,
bro, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Now, we being a podcast called Coffee and Cream, we have to ask, and you being a campus minister, you meet with a lot of students. Are you a coffee drinker? And if you are, what do you drink?
I am. I really like to go to Blueprint or Sump, or my wife now works at Renaissance Financial, which is above Comet. So I'll take her to work.
Honey, this is such a burden for me to take you to work every day.
I'll take her to work, and then I'll be like, oh man, I need to go get some work done, and
I'm gonna get a croissant fresh out of the oven. It's a hard life.
So, yeah, those are probably my three places that I hang out at the most, or receive my money.
That's like the most stereotypical college minister thing you can say, like, just coffee shops, that's all we're at.
That's it.
So
there's only the only one closest to the university is Starbucks. So
yeah,
they get my money too.
Hey, keeping the coffee flowing, man. That's what you do,
man. That's what I do. That is what I do as a campus minister.
Yeah. So
nothing else,
man. So I think part of why we want to have you on is your position on campus, but your testimony, man. Like, I remember us getting coffee a couple months ago, and you just telling me your heart for students, and telling me your testimony and how you eventually came to Webster and came to InterVarsity. And man, it's It's a powerful testimony, bro, and it would behoove us to allow you space to tell us about your testimony, man, because Jesus has really changed your life. He's changed all of our lives, but man, your testimony is so powerful. So why don't you just, as briefly as you can in the little time we have here, just kind of go through a little bit of your testimony and how Christ has saved you, has brought you to college ministry at Webster.
Sure. Yeah. So December 15th, 2009, I became a follower of Jesus. Before that, it's like, gonna give you Reader's Digest.
Yeah.
Hashtag Reader's Digest.
Is that a hashtag?
That's
Can we use that now?
It's going now.
Hashtag Reader's Digest.
Hashtag my pastor's watching this, and he's like, well, I'm gonna pick that up. No. Taught him that. Anyway, so December 15th, 2009, I became a follower of Jesus. Before that, I had some stuff happen to me in my life. My parents got divorced when I was at a younger age. I didn't really have a great church experience. Just a lot happened within that. And so, I was hurt, but in my own rebellion, I chose to respond to all of that pretty negatively. And so what I chose to do was I decided, hey, I'm going to start drinking and smoking. And, why don't we take this to the next level, and I'll get involved in some occultic stuff. And so when I was in high school, I was secretly gambling in Satanism. I was actually hospitalized for my depression when I was in the 8th grade. Just a long story. And so between my freshman year and my junior year in college, I kind of kept that to myself. Especially my junior year, I got friends, got a girlfriend, I got all this kind of stuff. The only people that knew that I was probably interested in Satanism were my bandmates. I was in a heavy metal band.
Another stereotype.
Can you see that though? Like with this haircut. And
yeah.
Did you ever?
It's very
just very
heavy
death
metal vibe. Yeah,
right. So my senior year comes around and I am just super depressed. My friends weren't too great to me. I was getting kicked out of my house a lot. Just everything in my life was falling apart. And so it was at that time that I felt like there were Christians that wanted to conveniently share Jesus with me now. So like, don't talk to me freshman year to junior year, but let's conveniently talk to you now.
Yeah.
This is just kind of how I felt. And I, even if that was true or if that's just the narrative I'm telling myself, whatever, like I still responded to that pretty negatively. Sure. And so I said, screw it. I'm going to come out with my belief. I'm a Satanist, and this is I treated Christians pretty poorly.
Yeah.
But there was a Christian family up the street that would take me in whenever I'd get kicked out, and they'd feed me. They would let me sleep in the guest bedroom of their place, and every time I'd show up, they'd say, "Hey, we love you because Jesus loves you." And didn't matter if I was high, didn't matter if I had a little bit to drink. Didn't matter. They just took me in. I could show up there at 2 o'clock in the morning and be like, hey, come on in. Like, that's all right. We just want you to have a place to sleep. And eventually that really wore on my heart. And I felt like I had an encounter with Jesus one night. And my friend says to me, do you want to become a follower of Jesus now? And I said no. And I went home. So long story short, December 15th, 2009, I am at my house. And I'm restless. I'm tired, and I don't know how to describe it. That week, I just felt like I was dying. And I remember calling my friend and him coming over to my house, and I said, what would you do if I threw away all of my satanic metal albums? What would you do if I threw away all of these things? He goes, I don't know. I said some choice words because I wasn't quite there yet. I was like, but we're going to go to the trash can now. And I essentially came to faith. I didn't do oh Lord, I accept you in my heart type of deal. I just had some choice things to say to all of my albums, and I threw them out in the trash and said I'm a follower of Jesus, and that was it. So that was that. And then between December 15th, 2009 and August 24th, 2010, I got accepted into the music department at Webster University. And between that time period, I felt like the Lord was putting on my heart to begin to pray for my campus. I didn't really know anything about my campus yet.
Sure.
But I just felt called to my campus. I felt called to love my university.
Yeah.
And my first day of school, I'll never forget it. My friend, we're good friends now. I won't say his name on here, though, for privacy. But he looks at me, very first day of school. He goes, "You're a Christian?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "What the F are you doing at Webster University?" I was like, "Bro, let's go." I never felt more prepared.
Right. You're good.
So, yeah, my very first day of ministry there was I had conversations with people about Jesus. I went to every single dorm room in my dorm hall and wrote on every single whiteboard, like, "If you want to hear about Jesus, come to this room."
Wow.
And we had 12 people show up to this really smelly study room where in the middle of my preaching, people were dumping their trash. It's cool, but hey, 4 years later, it became my job. It grew into something that I didn't really expect it to grow into. And Jesus, I guess all of these years has taught me that he's faithful, that he's good, that he's merciful, and that not only does he love me, he loves the people that hurt me too, right?
Yeah.
And hey, forgiveness, y'all. And furthermore, he loves the college campus. He loves students at Webster University and beyond. Like all the college campuses, Jesus loves them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. I love hearing that testimony because it's so powerful to hear how God has brought those events into your life and has called you to himself in those events.
Yeah.
So I know another powerful part of your testimony is how you've dealt with your ethnicity.
Yeah.
And how that struggle has shaped you. So kind of talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure.
Talk to us about how the struggle to define your ethnicity has shaped who you are today.
Sure. So that wasn't even anything that I even thought of until Ferguson happened.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was my first year on staff with
Yeah.
InterVarsity in 2014. And, I graduated a few months earlier, all this kind of stuff. And then Ferguson happened. And I was a little confused at first. I don't know. I didn't really know how to respond. I had an amazing supervisor at the time who challenged me to come observe a protest happening at the Ferguson Police Department. I was hesitant, not gonna lie. I actually feel sometimes unqualified to be able to talk about race and everything. Just thinking of my story, I didn't expect to be doing this right now.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think anybody any of us did. I certainly did. When Ferguson happened, no. Absolutely not.
I didn't know what to do. But when I was at the Ferguson police station, I was encouraged to observe and to get to know people that are there. And so I started asking folks questions. And that kind of was the beginning of my journey. And I have to admit, the very first experience of that protest, I had this mentality of I kept saying things in my head like them, they need this, blah, blah, blah. There was this us versus, not necessarily us versus them mentality, but us and them mentality.
Yeah.
Right. And then I show up to my regional staff conference, and I don't know if y'all know who Sarah Shin is. She was given a talk on ethnicity.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And oh my God, it was the first day there, and we're talking about, I guess, experiencing the gospel and your own ethnic identity and culture and all that kind of stuff. And even the pains from your ethnic identity, where have you contributed to the world of sin? Where have you sinned? Where have you been sinned against?
Yeah.
All these things shape how you view the conversation of race.
Yeah.
And I realized something was my whole life. So I'm Italian. and then I'm Hispanic. And even in the Hispanic side, that is a lot of things, like Mexican, Spanish, but even further than that, Spanish Jew. Like, there's like a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah.
And my whole life, I've just been telling people I was Italian. That's it.
Yeah.
That was all I wanted to identify with.
Sure.
And even if I ever did identify with being Mexican, there was always some derogatory term attached to it. Maybe like, sure, I've experienced things where, even if I'm calling myself Italian, I had somebody tape on my back when I was washing dishes at a restaurant. It said, "I'm an effing wetback." So like I've experienced stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I noticed looking at it, because one of the things that we were learning about at that training was kind of like how we view ourselves, like our own ethnic identity, will kind of affect how we do ministry. And I looked on there and I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't have any Latinos in my chapter, not because the Lord's not sending them, but because I don't want to talk to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it was because I had a negative view about that within myself.
Yeah.
And sure, that was like a breaking moment for me. There was like a lot of crying. There was like a lot of prayer.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. But it's kind of like progressed. Like I've had ups, I've had downs. Kind of like with that story. I don't know. Like, does that kind of like make sense?
Yeah.
No, that's real.
Where I'm at now, I feel like I have a better understanding of who I am. Like, yes, I'm growing in who I am as a follower of Jesus. But like, what does it look like for me to be a multi-ethnic man? Right.
Yeah.
And like, what is that? How does that interpret the way that I view people? Like, how do I view myself? Like, how do I think God views me, like, in my story of my ethnic journey, and how does that affect other people?
Bro, that's solid, man. I think a lot of people in that position, like, whether in the majority or the minority section of, like, yes, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and how does that inform how I view myself and my ethnicity?
Yeah.
That's a powerful question everyone's asking themselves, and we really appreciate your transparency.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are minorities may be afraid to say, like, I wrestle with my own self-identity. Like, that's a hard thing to admit to.
Yeah.
Because we're told we got to be proud of our ethnicity or our minority status in some form or fashion, but it's hard sometimes.
Well, and going off of that too, like where I even see the gospel in my ethnic identity. So, in Ephesians 2, it talks about Jesus destroying the dividing wall of hostility. And I realized that I had a dividing wall of hostility within myself, if that makes sense. Like, I had this Italian side, and then I had this Latino side, and I built this wall up between the two, right? And because of that, I built other walls up with students that I could potentially reach, because I didn't want to reach them. And what Jesus did was he destroyed that wall that I had within my heart and showed me, hey, like, you're not like just 50-50. Like, I'm embracing all of you.
Yeah.
Because my whole life I thought, well, I'm not Latino enough, or I'm not Italian enough. And Jesus is like, you're enough for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's so good, bro.
Yeah.
So, like, in hearing your testimony and your passion for college ministry or campus ministry, and talking about racial issues, where have you seen, or where do you see the conversation about racism going, specifically on the college campus? And, like, you can speak strictly from, like, your personal view, your personal experience. Like, just feel like you don't have to speak for everyone in that realm. But, like, I just like to hear your opinion on that. So, where do you see the conversation going on racism?
Yeah, I would even say, because I'm a couple years even into understanding my story, where I'm personally starting to now try and figure out is, okay, now how do we apply tangibly some ways, like specifically for my chapter 2, how do I cultivate like a multi-ethnic leadership team? Like, how do I intentionally do that without tokenizing? You know what I'm saying? So, and then even in the college campus, there are some campuses that I think talk about race issues very well. There are some campuses that I think pretend that they don't exist. We have my campus where I think I can get more into this later, where we acknowledge that they exist, but ignore like structures that are set up that I think are maybe a little bit hypocritical to the message that's being spoken. And so like I guess like where I see it going now is trying to find tangible application in how it affects the structure of the university, or how does it affect the structure of like the communities on campus. You know,
that's really interesting, because I think that going into like a misconception about college campuses, a lot of people think that college campuses are these havens of progressive thought, where these ideas are being talked about all the time.
Sure.
And if you send your kids there, they're going to be inundated with these ideas and these things, and they're going to walk away with a more progressive or liberalized view of race and those things. But from what I'm hearing you saying like it's different across different campuses, and it doesn't matter whether you're progressive or conservative, these issues are still not being addressed as they ought to be.
Like for example, too, I might get clap back for this. We'll find out.
Okay.
At least at Webster, how I view it is there are always conversations on human sexuality. There are always conversations on feminism, and I think that's great. Like we should have conversations. It felt like to talk about race, or even like talk with the administration on race. It was like pulling teeth. It's like been happening for a few years, and it feels like we're just now starting to talk about it.
What's the ethnic makeup of Webster? Is it pretty diverse, or is it?
I would say that I had to actually study the demographics of Webster.
Sure.
So it's a 75% commuter school. It's one of the top 5 schools for study abroad programs, like really great. There's like 180 something Webster universities in the world, and so we have people from different countries studying abroad to Webster. In Webster Groves, like the main campus. Really cool stuff, but it's about 75% white. And then the numbers get smaller, obviously, from there on. Like I think like 10-15% African American, and then from there it just kind of gets even smaller.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So I guess moving from that, what are some other misconceptions that people may have about the talk about racism on college campus? You mentioned one of like it's not always talked about in the way that it needs to be, or it's not really addressed at all in some college campuses. What are some other misconceptions people have about the racism talk on campus?
I gotta think about that for a minute. I guess like just thinking about it, probably that like everybody agrees with one another on what must be done at the university.
Interesting.
And that like if a protest happens, everybody's on the same page.
Sure.
Stuff like that.
Sure.
I can give a tangible example too.
Go for it.
I was having a Bible study, I think it was like a year and a half ago, and it just happened to be this way. I had 12 students in my Bible study, and every single one of them were African American. And we had this one guy come up and say, hey, we're having a protest on campus today. He was a white guy. He comes up to us. He goes, we're having a protest on campus today for minorities. We're doing this for you. So observe the language. We're doing this for you. We really want you to be there. Blah, 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 blah.
Interesting.
And I had a student like just go, thanks? And I was like thinking, so, we said we'll check it out.
Yeah, we'll walk by.
And we go out there, and it was the administration was there. The police from Shrewsbury and Webster Groves were there. Like streets were like
Wow.
like not shut down, but there was a cop at every corner, like waiting for this thing to get huge. Blah 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 blah. Campus security was everywhere, and then there was these students that met in the middle of the quad, and it was a protest for the minority students without the minority students.
Wow.
And so there was like no minority students present at the protest, but it was for them, right?
Oh, wow.
So I guess like I can't really say I don't know how to answer the question other than like there's like even at the progressive schools where where it's assumed that maybe these progressive liberal arts schools have the answer. You know?
Yeah.
Well, not everybody agrees what that looks like. And it was interesting, like, even to my students, we were talking about it, that it was a protest for minority students, like, well-intended, without minority leadership, without minority voice, you know, but it was like, we're doing this for you.
That's interesting.
You know? Bro, that is, wow. Yeah, there seems to be a culture of protesting that has been put on display, whether through social media or news outlets or whatever. And there are protests not just about racial issues, but about anything and everything, it seems like, from sexuality, feminism, all those things.
Free speech.
Free speech, right. Money, economical things, anything really, honestly. And I'm not a guy that's neither for nor against protesting. I think that's a person's choice depending on what they're protesting about as well. But dealing specifically with the racial issue, how have you seen protesting and how it intersects with your college ministry when it comes to the racial issues?
Yeah, that's really good. So, one tangible example, I know I said that I didn't engage in that one protest. Like my students and I kind of checked it out and just looked at it from afar. Yeah.
You guys are doing good over there.
But that doesn't mean that I've not been to a protest on campus and participated.
Okay.
So last September, when the Jason Stockley verdict happened, I remember my students actually were one of the main leaders for a protest on campus. And I remember showing up, and all these students are marching on the street. Oh, man, there was this one Webster Groves cop. So, like, my students are here. There's this one Webster Groves cop that zooms up on them and stops right here and gets out of his car and makes an announcement that, like, they need to get off the streets or people are going to get arrested. All that kind of stuff. And then I see my students looking at me like, come join us. They're like looking at me like, hey.
We know him.
We know him. And I'm like, oh, man. And they're like, come join us. And what I thought in that moment, you know, like I was tempted to not join.
Yeah.
You know, if it hadn't been for my students pointing me out.
Yeah.
Putting the spotlight on me. You know, I'm looking at that and I thought one thought I had was like, I talk about racism a lot. I talk to my students about how the kingdom of God is multi-ethnic and that if one part of the body suffers, the whole body suffers. Like, I talk to my students a lot about the imago Dei in every single human being, right? And right now, my students are marching for their imago Dei to be seen, right?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, if I don't join, I lose integrity.
Sure.
You know? And if I don't go there with them, I'm going to miss out on an opportunity and lose integrity here. Like, it's like, do I believe this? And I thought back to my supervisor when Ferguson happened, and the question he had for me is like, will you lean in? It's like a cinematic moment. Will you lean in?
See him like off in the distance. Like, will you?
Everything slowed down.
Yeah.
Join us.
He has like the mist around him.
Will you lean in? Yes, Lord. So I said yeah, and I went out there. Nobody got arrested. But like kind of like how I view that was, you know, I'm raising leaders. I'm empowering leaders like who love Jesus with all of their heart, mind, soul, and strength.
Yeah, man.
They love the Lord. Nobody can deny that.
Yeah.
And so, like, who else would you rather have than leading a protest? You know?
Yeah.
They have set the tone for what that protest is going to look like. Would you rather have somebody else do that?
Yeah.
You know? Like, like who else would you rather have, like, step up to the challenge? I mean, like, for example, there was another student there. This young white man was, like, getting provocative with one of the Webster Groves police officers.
Yeah.
And that was where I thought this is going to go really bad. But, like, I saw my own student leaders engage and be like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, no, we're not going to do this. And I got a chance to see the students that I would meet with on a weekly basis not only voice their, like, their cry to be seen and heard, and stand for justice, but to set the tone.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to racism and the college campus and protest, where I see it is, I need to be developing leaders who go to the hard places, and I need to go to the hard places as a follower of Jesus. Because that's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
He went to the hard places rather than going around Samaria like he could have. He went straight to the woman at the well.
Yeah.
Right? The very first thing that we see that Jesus did was a cross-cultural conversation, was a cross-cultural divide. Like, Jesus entered into racial hostility and made the first evangelist come out of it. Why wouldn't I be sending my students into those situations? And why wouldn't I go into those situations?
So,
You know?
wow, that's powerful. So, kind of, I want to lean in that a little bit more. So, do you see sending students as a part of the discipleship opportunities at Webster?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. How can you? I'm trying to think of this from a perspective that may disagree with you on this.
Cool.
So, a lot of the times you'll see protesters, and part of the problem is how the media portrays protests.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of the problem. When people say, like, protesting or sending people into the protests can be part of discipleship, they have a knee-jerk reaction about that, because a lot of the times what only people think about is Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Sure.
Or the worst part of Black Lives Matter. They don't see protesting as helpful. They don't see it as useful. They just see it as people complaining, or they see it as they just see it as people, what's the word I'm looking for? Virtue signaling, instead of actually trying to affect real change in the system. Speak into that. How do you address those issues and those concerns while you're on the college, as a college minister, as you're discipling students to go into those places, those hard places? How do you disciple them to go with the gospel and to be on mission in those places where it seems to be the most difficult?
That's good. Well,
We get some meaty questions for you, bro.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's good. Well, I mean, first thing, before I even get into how do I disciple them to get into that, I would say even the whole reason why I care about racial reconciliation was because I was challenged as a discipleship opportunity for me to go. And I went and I listened. I asked questions. I got to know people. I leaned in. And then my supervisor debriefed that whole experience with me to help me try and see where was the Lord moving in that experience for me.
Yeah.
Right. With that being said, I look at protests as a discipleship opportunity, and sending students into that kind of environment as an opportunity. I even had students there that were on the sidelines that didn't know that a protest was happening, and I debriefed that with them too.
Sure.
They didn't engage, but That's all right. Like,
Yeah.
everything is a discipleship opportunity.
Mm.
And so, like, with that being said, I don't want to limit it to, like, protests are the only thing for a takeaway for discipleship opportunity. But also, I wouldn't just send any student into that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, my students that were leading it were pretty grounded in the Word, right? And they had a pretty vibrant relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't just take a brand new Christian, and somebody might disagree with me. So somebody out there might disagree with me, might be my colleagues, I don't know. That's all right.
Yeah.
I'm open to being wrong. I'm open to being wrong. I wouldn't take a brand new Christian and put them in that kind of a scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, like, maybe that sometimes I don't want to pretend like that they always have the opportunity to escape such a scenario.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to put it on my agenda to throw somebody in there without, you know, like, hey, let's take some time and looking at what it looks like to read scripture. Like, let's take some time and learn how to pray.
Yeah.
How not just to pray for yourself, but to pray for other people. You know, and even so, right there, I would say praying for other people. Well, how do you know how to pray for people? Well, you kind of like get to know them and hear like what their needs are.
Yep.
Or observe and listen to God, or just kind of like going to where people are already at in situations that they're already in. And so, hey, a protest is on campus. Let's go watch and see who we can talk to and have some takeaways from that.
Sure.
And then, I don't know, do a crazy thing like pray after everything's done. Like, pray like, Lord, what are you teaching me in this opportunity here? Lord, how do you see me in the future in this situation? You know, like, Lord, even though I wasn't a part of it today, like, God, thank you for your grace that you take me as I am and give me opportunity to hear the needs of people on this campus, and that you've put me here to be able to be a part of this. You know, I'm not the solution, Lord, but you have me here for a reason. You know, that's kind of how I look at that as what my pushback would be for that.
No,
that's awesome.
That's solid, bro. For real. It's kind of moving ahead a little bit there. You've mentioned several times that you've had a supervisor, people on your staff, friends that you work with, students that are under you, pushing and encouraging you towards this vision of biblical racial reconciliation, if I can put it in that framework.
Sure.
In fact, I was looking at InterVarsity's website, and back in September 2017, InterVarsity came out with a statement against racism, like renouncing racism. This is good. Like we've had the SBC do this. I think the PCA has done this. And so it's good to see a college ministry do that. And so, kind of reading through that, and I had just this question popped into my mind of how does that kind of statement play out on the ground level for you? Like, people can read those statements like, oh, the whole organization is renouncing it. That's great and wonderful. Yeah. And there's also practicality behind that. And so, like, in your realm, what does that look like?
Man, okay, I want to say this about InterVarsity. They said that statement with integrity. Not perfection, okay, but integrity. Yeah. Because in my opinion, like, and then how I'm viewing this, like, InterVarsity said that after they're already engaged in all of these kinds of things. Yeah. You know, like, it wasn't, hey, we're going to make this statement and now creatively find ways to implement it. Yeah. Like, it's already implemented. So, as a staff worker, I'm trained to examine my own ethnic identity in the lens of the gospel. Like, my first 2-year internship, you know, every ministry has its own flavor, if you will. Yeah. I think InterVarsity, like, you know, its own edge. Right. Something that it's really good at. And InterVarsity's edge is cross-cultural conversations and multi-ethnic witnessing communities. And so I'm trained in my own ethnic identity. Right. I have an ethnically diverse leadership team that pours into my life. Yeah. I wrote all these things down. I have an ethnically and culturally diverse team that I can learn from. I have tangible resources that are authored by even some of my own coworkers and how to build multi-ethnic ministry and cultivate a multi-ethnic leadership team. Like, there's so many resources available to me. There's so many trainings that are available to me that I've experienced or that are available to me for multi-ethnicity and racial reconciliation. Like, this was happening before Ferguson. I have leaders who challenge me, like for that Ferguson scenario example that I said earlier. And so on the campus, you want to know, how does this play out on the ground level? I'm trained to lead students in the same experiences. Sometimes I fail, right? Sometimes InterVarsity fails. But what I think is beautiful about IV is that they made that statement out of integrity, out of things that they're already doing well.
That is
so
good.
they walk the talk.
Totally. I don't know how I would view these conversations if I did not work for InterVarsity. I really do believe that.
Well, that's good. I love that. It's wonderful to have ministries like InterVarsity on college campuses, because I think there's also, we talked about misconceptions before. I think there's one misconception that people don't really realize that they have about college campuses, and that there is no racial issues on there.
Sure.
And so for time's sake, I just wanted you to answer this question. What kind of racism issues do you see on college campuses? Are they overt, covert? So we're ministering to these students. We're talking to them about the gospel. We're helping them process through racial issues, because racial issues still exist even on college campuses, even in the progressive realm.
Sure.
So what do they look like in the college realm?
And if you have any specific examples, and even how you engage those, would be helpful as well for people.
What kind of racial issues do I... Okay, so I'm trying to think of, like, my university and, like, a few others. Because, there was an article you sent me. I remember it being in the news where, unfortunately, some white students thought it would be hilarious to put bananas on a campus and all that kind of stuff for the first African-American...
I can't remember. It was a provost or something like that.
Yeah.
I think I remember reading about that. She was, some sort of student association.
Yeah.
I have to read we'll post a link to it. Yeah.
There is blatant racism like that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to think twice and be like, oh, maybe they had good intentions.
There's no benefit of the doubt there.
There was no benefit of the doubt there. Man. Y'all had to be here before we did this to understand what we're getting at. Anyway, so there's that. And then there's racism that you really have to look for. Like, when I shared the story with you earlier, good intentions of, hey, we want to stand for minority students, but it was, hey, we want to stand for you. We're doing this for you.
Yeah.
You should thank us. We're doing this for you, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's like a little, it's a little racist.
Yeah.
They wouldn't think that.
Right.
But it is, So I'm trying to think on the college campus, at least at my campus and a few others that I know of, racism kind of can mask itself in, I think of the tax collector and the Pharisee in the altar before God praying, and one saying, at least I'm not like that guy over there.
Yeah.
Right? And the other recognizing his sin and not even looking to Jesus. And so on the college campus, there are times that I see people that are, quote unquote, standing for racism.
Yeah.
Standing against racism, but will not look into the mirror and see themselves and let that kind of have some self-examination, if that makes sense. And so it's like some false humility, hey, I get that there's like a lot of racial issues in the world, but hey, I'm not racist.
Yeah.
Right.
At least I'm not like them.
Right.
At least I'm not alt-right. I'm progressive.
Yeah, I would have voted for Obama a third time.
Yeah.
I voted for Hillary Clinton. I voted for Bernie Sanders. Well, that's a whole other story with Clinton.
Bernie Bros.
Anyway, but no. But you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I vote blue, so therefore I'm not racist.
Oof.
And so it's masked, and because I do these things, that means that I'm not this. But who knows the heart more than the Lord, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can do things, but it's how they're done that can really show your motivation. Like, do you really get it?
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, because I work for InterVarsity that the Lord has me here, that I've been really challenged in introspection. So, you know, I bet I might have some more developed ideas a couple weeks from now, and maybe different opinions on other things.
You go back to this and be like, wrong. Delete.
I'm sorry, friends. But I don't know, like, I guess that's like one way. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have any other?
Yeah, no, I think that's good, man. I think you hit it on the head when you talked about self-examination. I think that's a key piece because I hear that a lot. I was listening to Carl Ellis Jr. did a whole podcast, or Carl Ellis did a whole, like, not podcast, a
Facebook Live.
a Facebook Live dealing with the idea of justice. And one of the things he had mentioned in that was people are quick to say, I'm not racist because I vote blue. I have several black friends or different minorities. I'm not racist. I never owned slaves, things like that. And one of the things he pointed out, and I'm paraphrasing, is that he said, like, look, you may not be racist or have the evil intent of racism in your heart and your actions, but the systems, the way things are structured, you benefit from that.
Yeah.
And so when you benefit from it, it's harder to see how other people are struggling or wrestling with that. And I think the only reason people can come to that answer is if they examine or self-examine, like, okay, am I benefiting from this and ignoring something else that's happening?
But Matt, systems aren't racist.
Oh, yeah. This
They're neutral.
They're neutral.
Systems are neutral. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So you know, yeah, but it's like a thing of Jenga, honestly.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
I want to hear where this goes.
Yeah, let's go. Let's follow this Jenga trail. Let's follow it.
It's like Jenga, right? So everything looks like similar, but if one person pushes the block out in the right place, they know they're going to win. If they pull the structure out in the right way, the next person that makes a move is going to fall. It's going to fall on them, and they're going to lose. And so, like, that is like systematic issues. It's like it is set up against you. As long as the first person makes the first move, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's why you always want to go first in Jenga,
right?
You know, because you always want to push that block out right in the middle at the bottom.
Man, systemic racism as Jenga is like the best analogy I've ever heard.
I don't know.
So wait. Is Jenga racist?
Yeah.
Is that what we're getting at here?
No, but the person that uses Jenga the wrong way is, you know what I'm saying? Like, so,
be careful playing Jenga, kids.
What about Monopoly?
Bro, don't even get. First of all, people need to learn how to play Monopoly again. Okay, you know what? That's a podcast for a different day. Getting off track, but no, what you said about, just get back to your point. Like, self-examination is key, bro. Like, I think that's wonderful, and I think teaching college students how to self-examine now, like, I wish I had learned that when I was in college, you know what I'm saying? Because you kind of be in denial about who you are in a lot of ways, or you're letting everything else define who you are besides the Lord. The Lord calls us to examine our hearts through his holy word. You know, and so I think talking about self-examination is very, 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 very important in this conversation.
And I think even going off of that, like, you were kind of talking about it a little bit, and this is the thing that we've been hitting on ever since we started this podcast, is that racism is a sin issue. Because racism is a sin issue, sin has corrupted the heart at such a deep level that there are things that we think or actions that we take or presumptions that we make that can be influenced by sin. And since we live in a racialized society, those things come out in that way. Knocking down the Imago Dei, or not recognizing the benefits we get from a system that was set up as racist. Systems can be racist because people who make them are racist. And I think that's the thing we're trying to hit on so much, is that the gospel can change those things. Over time, over countless hours, years, the gospel is the only thing that can change those hearts, and the gospel is the only thing that can change those systems, which is why it's so important as a campus minister to send those people out into those places where stuff can change, where action can happen, so that they can take the gospel, be informed by the gospel, and be a gospel witness in those places where those things are happening. And I think a lot of the pushback people seem to get is, you know, how can you decide what's racist and what's not racist? Because we talked about the overt racism, and there's a lot of subtleties in the covert racism is like, you're saying I'm racist because I said this. Like, man, really? Like, how? Let's do this, and we'll start to wrap up a little bit. But how do you address those as a campus minister with the gospel?
Oh man. Well, first off, you cannot be reactionary. Like, I don't even know if that's a word, but you have to. You can't be like reactive, like right away.
Yeah.
Unless it's something that is blatantly racist.
Right.
I'll give you an example. I had a team meeting with my students, and I won't say how long ago because I don't know if the student is watching it.
Hey, bro, sorry.
You know who you are.
You know who you are. And he said something along the lines. So my core. Well, I'm not even gonna say it. That would give it away too.
Yeah, no. As vague as you can
I
get.
have a student that basically said something along the lines at our team meeting that like so and so is Asian, so they should be able to do this. And I looked at all of my students, and they looked at him like this, like, and then they started looking at me. And they start looking at him, and start looking at me, start looking at him.
You're gonna say something?
And then I said, like, my first thought was always ask a follow-up question to that. Give him a chance to explain what he means.
Yeah.
Because yes, that overtly can be racist, or is, but at the same time, like I don't want to assume something about his heart that I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think it's through intentional follow-up questions that we can discern if somebody, if something is blatantly racist.
Yeah.
And in the end, like, after I asked him a bunch of questions and all that kind of stuff, he kind of looked around, he goes, wait, so I shouldn't say that. I'm like, no, you shouldn't
Benefit of the doubt.
say that.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to just, I think I would have missed he would have missed an opportunity of growth, and I would have
That's
missed
so
an
good, bro.
opportunity to lead if
that's
I
good.
just said, hey, that's racist. You can't say that. Or, you know, hey, you shouldn't. Hey, that's like really wrong. You just offended that whole half of the room.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guilt you right now and let you know that you should feel bad for yourself. Instead, asking really intentional questions.
That's good.
To let somebody come to that realization. There are times that you need to be blunt.
Absolutely.
And there are times that you need to let somebody process that for themselves. So when it's something that I think is a little bit trickier and a little bit murkier, I'll ask deep questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
That's people aren't guilted into being disciples of Jesus.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Man, the discipleship process takes time. It takes questions. That's the whole point of Matthew 28. Teach them all that I have commanded you. And part of teaching is doing what Jesus did and ask questions.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
talk about this. The woman at the well. He asked a question, like a specific, direct question to her that revealed her heart. Go get. Where is your husband?
Yeah.
And that revealed a whole host of other issues in her heart.
Yeah.
Not that he tried to change her ethnicity or culture or anything like that, but he called out the sin issue in those things by just asking a question.
Yeah.
And that's the whole discipleship process, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's how the gospel works in the lives and hearts of people. We've become such a reactionary culture through social media and through all these different means. But the best way that people are discipled, the best way that people can understand racism, how they can self-examine themselves, is when you take the time to ask those questions. We've lost the ability to ask those questions. We've been hitting on this for so long now, forever. Ask questions. Do not just react out of something. This is why if I see something on Twitter and I'm like, put the phone down.
Yep.
Walk away. Think about it. Benefit of the doubt, maybe.
Well, I've said this before when I've hung out with y'all, and even in that video. But like, grace and truth, they are married to one another.
Yeah.
They are infused with one another.
Yeah.
It's yes, we should be truthful and speak into the topic of racism and call it out of somebody.
Yeah.
And we should also be kind and gracious at the same time, because the Lord was kind and gracious to us as he called us out of our sin.
Yeah, man.
It is the Lord's kindness that leads to repentance. And we should be that way to all of us, to all of those who are under us and who are leading with us, and our leaders. we should be full of grace and truth to them. I tell my students this here at InterVarsity when we talk about racism and all that kind of stuff. We are called to have grace and truth to one another because we're followers of Jesus first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's in these conversations that we take these buzzwords and put them to the test to see if we really believe in them or not. Right?
Bro, that's so good.
Hey. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, bro. That's so good. This last question, because we're running short on time today. I just want to ask one last question, man. And it's a question we like to ask most of our guests, all of our guests, really. What is one piece or several pieces of advice that you will give to someone that's in college or in college ministry that is wrestling with how to deal with racial issues and conversations? Wrestling
to deal with it, or like just what are some practical next steps for somebody?
Yeah, practical next steps. As practical as you can get us,
like,
man.
I feel like people are in this stage right now of like, okay, how do I address this? How do I talk about this? What do I do?
Oh my God, dude. Well, first and foremost, if you're a follower of Jesus, you should be praying and asking the Lord to give you that heart for these conversations.
Yeah.
To examine your own heart. Like you can, like we talked about self-examination earlier, and I wanted to follow up on that, and I guess this is a great place to do that.
Yeah.
We can only examine ourselves so far. You know, I've done so much self-examination, and if I had the ability to bring these things out to the light, well, I would have done all of this years ago, right? But it's the Lord who lets that light shine in the darkness of my heart and reveal to me what I don't see.
Yeah.
You know, so I need to pray and read the gospel and ask tough questions to myself and ask the Lord to reveal things to me, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is to develop leaders in your life, or to find leaders, diverse leaders, people that don't look like you, to speak into your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so like Psalm 1 is my favorite for stuff like this. It says, blessed is he who doesn't walk in the counsel of the wicked, right? So that means that the reverse of that would be true, that blessed is the man who walks in the counsel of the righteous, you know? And so for me, what I've always tried to do is surround myself with not just people that look differently than me, but people who can speak gospel-centered truth in my life. I don't want just anybody speaking into my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? There's like multiple things that can happen in that. Like,
yeah.
hey, I'm going to cultivate a multi-ethnic leadership panel of people to speak into my lives just for the sake of them looking different. You know, that right there is something, there's something messed up about that.
Yeah.
But I want people who can speak truth into my life and who can examine me.
Yeah.
I had somebody like, you know, I've experienced it where somebody asked me a bunch of questions and then at the end of it tell me, hey, that was actually racist. I'm like, oh, all right, thanks. You know, so having a diverse leadership team that speaks into my life.
Yeah.
I don't know, reading authors that don't look like you.
Yeah.
This year I've been reading nonstop MLK, and that has been pretty transformative to how I think.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Man, if you want another thing, I guess, like when you're entering the conversation, we live in a culture where everybody wants to have a voice.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Everybody wants to have a voice.
Sorry.
And I'm sorry.
Let's go.
I'm not taming you down.
But
Do it.
everybody wants to have a voice, but nobody wants to have an ear. We're raising leaders and training them and developing their voices without simultaneously developing their ears. Right?
Yeah.
And so we have a bunch of people walking into a room with this racial conversation like, hey, this is my moment.
Yeah.
To use my voice that my leaders have prepped me for. I'm just going to say everything that's on my mind right now without having the wisdom to be like, hey, this is a moment that I should be listening.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I should just have the humility that this is not an area of expertise to me, and I should be listening right now to people who are much more wiser than me on said situation. Hey, if you're going to mess up, I mess up all the time. I still messing up. And so as we enter these conversations, grabbing hold of the grace of God.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Grab it, like gripping it. You need it. You need to tell yourself it. You need to remind yourself of the grace of God. Right?
Yeah.
And then lastly, I think specifically a book in scripture that has really helped me is 1 John. So it poses questions like, or statements like, he who hates his brother does not love the Lord. So then had me being like, well, what does it look like to love my brother?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So those are some things that have been really transformative to me for the past few years.
Yeah.
I hope they're a blessing to somebody else.
Yeah, bro.
Absolutely, man.
So good.
That's awesome. Well, Dominic, thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
For having me.
This has been awesome. We pray that this encourages you, blesses you. If they want to find out more about you and your ministry, where can they go for that?
Yeah, so they can. That's great. I don't.
I don't know. The internet.
Yeah, the internet. I have a InterVarsity at Webster University page on Facebook. That just reminded me. I got to make that public. So if you want to join that and see what God is doing at Webster University, or like, you know, what that's all about and the ministry work that I do there, you can follow me on Facebook at InterVarsity at Webster University. Yeah. It's a page.
It's good.
Cool. We'll post the link to that in the show notes so you guys can find that.
Woo.
All right. So, guys, before we go, make sure you guys leave us an honest 5-star review. 5 big ones on iTunes. Takes you like 30 seconds. Less than 30 seconds to just hit 5.
Add it up. Yep.
Boom.
Right,
5 stars. It helps people find us. It helps us get up in the ratings. New and noteworthy. We'll see. So, guys, leave an honest 5-star review. You can head on over to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram page for updates. We'll be posting throughout the month of September, talking about the books that we're reading from Crossway. We'll be sharing those resources at coffeeandcreampodcast.com/resources. I want to thank our sponsors, JM Films. You can go to jmfilms.com. Switch Coffee. Use our promo code for 10% off your next order at switchcoffee.co, and head on over to crossway.org to pick up your gospel-centered resources. Any book you get on there is going to be fantastic, so get on there and buy some books. This episode was produced by Nick Francis and was mixed by the wonderful David Butler.
So good to be back.
So good to be back. Here we are. So that is it for this episode of Coffee and Cream. We will see you guys again in 2 weeks. Be a good episode, guys. Okay.
Wait. Is that racist or just? Hey, what made you think about that sound?
It's just, I don't know. I just thought
That's a lot of hot.
What?
That's
Hot take: Dragon Ball Z is racist. You heard it here first, folks.
That's only racist when they have dub voices. Try to do it.
Whitewashing Dragon Ball Z.
All right.
Good.
All right, cool.
Bring it back.
Bring it back. Okay.